Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Beatles Forever. Well, we're getting closer to the end of our journey with the Wings book Band on the Run. And in this video we see the close of the American tour, the celebrating of that, a making of a new album, a disruption in the band, and thoughts of murder. So it's really a jam-packed episode. So once the American tour at the Forum in Los Angeles was over on June 23rd, Paul held a massive party costing $80,000. And it took place at the mansion of the late film star Harold Lloyd in Hollywood. So that must have been quite a shindig, because $80,000 back then is a lot of money, and $80,000 now is a lot of money, so wow. So at this party, they had the Los Angeles Ballet performing with a chamber orchestra who played Wings and Beatles songs. And then they drained the swimming pool and used it as a dance floor, and they even had Nelson Riddle's orchestra performing the music. It sounded like Paul blew half his profits for the celebration. Guests were asked to wear white, and Paul and Linda hired Hawaiian artists to spray paint designs on the guests' clothes. Well, I don't think I would go for having that done on clothes, because I probably would have bought new clothes for the party. It was a party with some big celebrities: Rod Stewart, Warren Beatty, some members of the Beach Boys, Tony Curtis, David Cassidy, and many more. Well, the concert in America was a huge success. It lasted 7 weeks, and it grossed more than $5 million, which was a lot of money at that time. And later, Paul felt the success of the tour in the U.S., thinking it wouldn't be a one-time trip. But it did end up being just a one-time trip there for the United States. And then next, Paul organized Buddy Holly Week in London. Before Wings got started on the last leg of the European tour, he decided to celebrate Buddy Holly. Well, Buddy Holly was a rock and roll singer and songwriter in the 1950s. Paul and John and all the members of the Beatles loved Buddy Holly. And Buddy had great success with his band, the Crickets, and he died way too soon in an airplane crash when he was only 22 years old. But luckily we have his recordings and people like Paul who give tribute to Buddy and his wonderful music. So Norman Petty, who was a producer for Buddy Holly and the Crickets, flew in for Paul's event, and he presented Paul with a pair of Buddy's cufflinks. So Paul must have really been honored by that. Next, we have the last of the European tour. Wings got back to their touring in Europe September the 19th. They went to Vienna, Munich, and Zagreb, Yugoslavia. It is noted that this was the first time that there was a concert by a major rock artist in a communist country. Wings ended the tour in October with 3 nights at the Wembley Empire Pool. In total, for the 1976 World Tour, the band played 42 concerts in 10 countries. So that sounds like a lot of traveling. Paul's album of the concert. Well, Paul decided to release the songs performed during the concert in an album. Almost all the songs in America were recorded, so Paul listened to each concert, and so this must have been very time-consuming. It took him 6 weeks during the autumn of 1976, and he worked sometimes 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. He selected 5 best recordings of the 28 songs. He then made the final decisions and supervised the mixing and mastering of the songs according to the book Band on the Run. So this resulted in the album Wings Over America, and it was a 3-record set. It came out just before Christmas 1976. And I remember this album well. My sister bought the album, and she was a Wings fan. I have to admit that I was holding out for a Beatles reunion, and I couldn't get into the Beatles as solo performers, and I regret it now. And through the years, I've made a point to try and get all the music the individuals made. And I mostly love all the albums they've done and what talents they have. Well, it's said that the album Wings Over America was like being there, and I listened to the album so many times at that time, and I enjoyed the artwork and the album cover, and of course the songs. And the critics were positive. Dave Marsh from Rolling Stone said the album was nearly perfect, and the band's toughness is firmly established. Another reviewer said that it was an invaluable recording, and they were the best rock band in the world at their best. So Wings Over America sold 4 million copies in the United States. It was the first triple album by a group to go number 1 in the United States, and only the third at that time to hit number 1. The other 2 being the Woodstock compilation concert series and George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. Early 1977, well, Linda learned she was pregnant. Paul decided they would stop touring and start just doing recording. But then Linda got upset that Paul was in the studio all the time. because they said that he disliked a few things. That was like music, recording, and family. And so Linda felt like she was being neglected. Joe English, the drummer, went back to the United States and met his girlfriend Dale Betts on January 13th, 1977. He then went back to England to start work on the Wings album. So then they all got together to do the album London Town. But while they were in London, all the foggy, rainy days didn't inspire their songwriting. So Denny Laine mentioned that when he was in Los Angeles, he saw a recording studio on a boat. Paul liked that idea and decided to do that. He chose to record in the U.S. Virgin Islands at the end of April. Well, the yacht was equipped with the 24-track tape recording system, and they bought in 3 other yachts too. One yacht for eating and sleeping, another for the McCartney family, and the 4th yacht was also rented for the band. On the first day they all got together, they produced a track, so they made pretty good progress. They had a great schedule. It developed spontaneously. They did 3 or 4 hour sessions in the morning, the same for late afternoon to evening, and in between they did swimming, water skiing, and had great meals. May 5th, Paul decided to record a track playing acoustic guitar on the stern deck. And at night they lit up the yachts and played Wings music. So it sounds like a dream, like work and vacation at the same time. Well, it might have sounded like they had an idyllic time, but soon things started to go wrong. The first night out at sea, the captain of Paul's yacht smelled marijuana smoke, and the captain threatened to turn Paul over to the authorities. Paul ended up leaving the captain's boat, and he got a smaller yacht called the Wanderlust. Paul and his marijuana sure got him in tough spots through the years, and you would think that would have made him give it up. They even had U.S. Custom officials come to see Paul about it. And Paul would write the song Wanderlust, and that song made it on the album Tug of War. And Paul wasn't the only one having problems. Denny Laine had a sunstroke. A roadie broke his heel after slipping. Jeff Emmerich, a sound engineer, electrocuted his foot. And also a member of the boat crew somehow lost his false teeth. So I guess that was pretty rough for him. But they recorded 9 songs, and then they made it back to England. Well, next we have Paul and Linda decided to revamp their newsletter. The Wings fan club started back in 1973 when it was mentioned on the back of the cover of the Red Rose Speedway album. It was a bit disappointing because the subscribers only received an occasional newsletter that was copied on a duplicating machine. In 1974, it was restyled and improved with a glossy cover, and they were published quarterly. But by 1977, Paul and Linda decided to redo the newsletter altogether into a professional-looking product. It would have plenty of pictures, mainly by Linda, and the paper wasn't going to be shiny. And Paul's doodle would be the paper's logo. They wanted it to look like a newspaper, so the copies were printed at the Westminster Press in London. They called the newsletter the Club Sandwich, and that's pretty cute, and told the latest things going on in the band, and also offered memorabilia and albums. It sounded like a neat thing to get. I wish I would have joined. And then later they said that these original early issues were selling for up to $200 a copy. Paul at this time released an album called Thrillington in April of that year of 77. It was an instrumental version of Ram. He had done the recording like 6 years before, but when he released it, it didn't chart or gain any airplay. So I guess you would say it was kind of a flop. And then Linda McCartney and Wings did a song called Seaside Woman under the name Susie and the Red Stripes. And once people found out it was the Wings behind it, it charted, but it didn't stay long on the charts. Well, at this time, Paul and Jimmy weren't getting along. Joe English and Jimmy McCulloch were getting frustrated that they weren't being given work to do very frequently. And Jimmy didn't handle it too well and began drinking more and taking more drugs. In late summer, the band got back together on Paul's farm. Jimmy felt like he wasn't being used creatively, and he didn't like living on the farm. His cottage had no hot water and no TV. Well, Jimmy and Paul fought, and Paul tried to help Jimmy regarding his drinking and drugs, his overuse of them. But Paul lost patience after a while, and he said that Jimmy could leave if that's what he wanted. It was then that I found a shocking story about Jimmy in the book Band on the Run. Jimmy was so out of sorts he considered murdering Paul and Linda, and I don't know why he wanted to kill Linda, but he had that thought. So he purchased a gun illegally, and one night he walked outside to the McCartney's bedroom window, and he pointed the gun towards them with shaky arms, but he changed his mind and ran to a stream that was on the property. He decided that he was going to kill himself. He even put the gun in his mouth, but at that time Denny and Jojo, his wife, Denny's wife Jojo, drove up to the farm in their van, and he had a change of heart, and he decided to leave the band instead. So I'm so glad that Jimmy changed his mind. What a loss that would have been for Beatles fans, Wings fans, and fans of Paul McCartney himself. Paul created such a great body of work, and it's only gotten better in time. Well, the book Band on the Run has been a great source for finding out more about Paul McCartney and Wing days. It's like being with them all and going full speed ahead during their crazy days of touring and creating albums. Well, the book's almost at an end, but I'll continue to create videos on the subject until we reach the end. It's great to go back in time and find out things I never realized at that time. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and if you did, if you could give it a thumbs up, that would help me with the channel. It also shows if you liked it, and that's good information to know. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any videos, please be sure to click on the notification bell, and you'll get a notice saying a video is available. But I hope everybody's been having a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of The Beatles Forever. Thank you. Bye.